Killer stalkers. They track the object of their affection, like a predator hunting its prey.
There's something very special. I just couldn't get over it.
Jealous lovers. Obsessed acquaintances. Delusional admirers.
I remember saying in my mind, what if I killed him?
We explore the minds of extreme stalkers, revealing what drives some to become most evil. A scale exists to measure the darkest corners of human behavior. From impulse killings to madness-fueled violence. Calculated acts of cruelty, torture, and brutality. Forensics now reveals those among us who are most evil. Stalkers strike everywhere. Most victims are women. 1 out of 12 American women will be stalked in her lifetime. The most extreme cases end in death. In Los Angeles, Robert Bardo shoots dead the woman he loves. They have never met. 1980. Obsessed Beatles fan Mark David Chapman kills his childhood idol for the world to see. Richard Farley massacres 7 people in front of a woman he pursued for 4 years. And Gerald Atkins opens fire at people he thinks are sabotaging his wedding plans. The woman he loves doesn't even know his name. The crimes are shocking, sinister, evil. But not all evil acts are equal. Now there is a scale with 22 levels. It decodes a killer's motive, method, and mind. The more heinous the crime, and the more rational the perpetrator, the higher the criminal is placed on the scale. Creator of this scale, renowned forensic psychiatrist Dr. Michael Stone. Dr. Stone explores these killers' pasts and crimes to understand what motivates them to kill, and uses his scale to navigate the minds of the most brutal stalkers.
Stalkers can be anybody. They are people we know, once loved, or are complete strangers. All stalking begins with fantasy, which then turns obsessive. Essentially, stalking is an uncontrollable desire, something present potentially in all of us.
But what pushes some stalkers over the edge? Why did Richard Farley's infatuation turn deadly? Silicon Valley, California, 1988. Richard Farley is in love with a coworker named Laura Black. But she keeps refusing him. After 4 years of being stalked, she gets a restraining order. Her rejection enrages him. Undeterred, Farley goes to work and kills 7 people.
At first, this may appear as a crime of passion, but as I dig deeper into Farley's case, it's clear he's very deliberate. This wasn't an impulsive mass murder. This was a drawn-out plan of deadly desire.
(1984). Farley and Black work at the same defense firm. He is a computer technician. She is an engineer. Farley notices her from afar and tries to woo her.
Hi, Laura. You look lovely as ever. I lay awake at night thinking about you.
She declines his advances, but he persists. He joins her gym, spies on her at home, and fantasizes they are a couple.
Hi, Laura. Love of my life. These past weeks, I've been thinking more about the relationship that we have. I agree, it's a weird one. And yes, I still love you very much.
He courts her with sweet gestures, proposes they live together, even offers to buy them a home. Over 4 years, he sends her 200 letters.
Stalkers tend to be very narcissistic, egocentric. They're not only after their victims, they're also looking to redeem their sense of self. But there was something more wicked and conniving about Farley. He had a strong need for control and power. This is evident even in his childhood.
Farley grows up in a family of 6 children. As a boy, he is self-centered, a trait common in stalkers. He dominates his younger brothers, perhaps mimicking his abusive father. As an adult, he fuels his need to dominate by spying on people. He gathers intelligence for the Navy. Spying is part of the job, and a tactic he later uses on Black. The more she turns him away, the more invasive Farley becomes. He sneaks into her office, makes copies of her house keys, and leaves a spare set on her desk. His aggression escalates.
I have your parents' address. So if you run, I'm ready to follow you. If pushed enough, I'm capable of killing to protect myself, and the hell with the consequences.
Frightened, Black complains to her bosses, and Farley is fired. But he continues to trail her. She gets a restraining order against him. Unable to go near her, Farley snaps. February 16th, 1988. Farley returns to the office with 7 guns and a rifle. He kills 7 and wounds 4, including Laura Black. She survives. Farley eventually surrenders.
There he is. They got him.
What makes him more vicious than most stalkers is he not only killed multiple people, but he purposefully killed innocent people in front of Laura Black. He knew this would inflict great pain and suffering upon her. Because of the severity of his crimes, I placed Richard Farley at level 14 on the scale. This place is reserved for egocentric schemers. A killer who interprets rejection as a major blow to his ego, and then lashes out in an attempt to save face.
Richard Farley is now on death row in California. But what triggers stalking? And why does it sometimes lead to murder? Most stalking cases don't turn violent. Only 2% of all cases end in death. But when it does happen, what is the cause? And why would they harm the very person they love? Some answers lie in how the brain responds to rejection.
It's the first stage of romantic rejection where I think most of the stalking occurs. Because it's in that early stage, you have focused attention, motivation, craving. Some brains can flip out and start in on the process of stalking.
Dr. Helen Fisher of Rutgers University is studying how the brain responds to romantic rejection. Her research opens a window into the neurological roots of stalking and how rejection can trigger extreme behaviors.
Rejection is one of the most powerful human experiences on Earth with tremendous consequences. You're struggling with deep resentment, humiliation, shame, experiences that shut the brain down to normal behavior.
I think about her all the time. It hurts not to be able to see her. I would do anything to get her back. I mean, anything.
Do you call her?
Yes. I just want her to talk to me.
In the study, Dr. Fisher recruits and interviews 15 test subjects who have just been abandoned by their lovers.
The people who responded were in bad shape. They were obsessed with their thoughts. Their brains had been hijacked. Really quite obsessed with it.
This is all that matters to me.
To measure the power of rejection, Dr. Fisher has the subjects go through brain scans as they look at photos of their ex-lovers. She expects the photos to evoke emotions, but is surprised by the profound anger many exhibit. The brain images reveal intensified activity in regions that control emotions, particularly rage.
When I began to see the intense rage that some of our participants expressed, I suddenly realized abandonment rage was a very core response among most people. And that when you don't get what you want, somehow it triggers the rage system.
This may stem from a hormonal imbalance, which impairs the brain from regulating desire and obsessions. And repeated rejections can throw this brain malfunction out of control, driving the stalker to become more determined to obtain the unattainable, like a predator hunting its prey. Killer stalkers are deceptive, live anonymously, and spend their days and nights scheming how they'll conquer their victims. Perhaps the most psychotic types are celebrity stalkers. Who go after people they've never met. Like Dawnette Knight, who threatens to kill Catherine Zeta-Jones in dozens of letters. In one message, she vows to slaughter the actress and feed her flesh to her dogs. Knight's motive? To be with Zeta-Jones's husband, actor Michael Douglas. Robert Dewey Hoskins is a mentally ill homeless man who stalks Madonna. He breaks into the superstar's home multiple times. His mission? To marry her. And perhaps the most terrifying celebrity stalker is John Hinckley Jr., who doesn't attack his idol, actress Jodie Foster, but targets other famous people to impress her. Hinckley stalks Foster for 2 years. He even moves to Connecticut to be near her while she's at Yale. In 1981, he successfully captures Foster's attention when he fires at President Ronald Reagan. Reagan and 3 aides are wounded.
Stalkers are generally socially inept, so they rely on fictitious relationships rather than real relationships. Celebrity stalkers believe they actually know their victims. Part of their quest is to learn everything about their victims. This is how they feel close and establish a relationship with a stranger.
While celebrity stalking cases tend to make headlines, they are rare. 10% of cases involve famous people, but the numbers are rising.
In our media age, stalkers have access to other people they wouldn't otherwise know. Thus, they are more capable of living out their fantasies about them.
One of the most infamous celebrity stalkers is Robert Bardo. Trapped in the world of television, he cannot separate fact from fiction.
My girl was stalking me that since her relationship with her, because she seemed like a very successful, horrible type woman, very innocent, very charming, and very pretty, you know. There was something very special about her. I just couldn't let go of her.
Los Angeles, 1989. Robert Bardo murders TV actress Rebecca Schaefer. He confesses to police shortly after the crime.
She didn't seem to understand that if the man out there would be dying to meet her, and some harm would come to her.
Bardo stalks Schaefer for 3 years. When he can't have her, he shoots her dead. Why does he destroy the very person he adores?
Fantasy is at the core of all stalking. With Bardo, fantasies overwhelmed him, to the point where he could not separate fact from fiction. This confusion had plagued him all his life.
Bardo is the youngest of 7 children, but he spends most of his time alone, in front of the television. It's his escape from the disorder in his home and mind. There is mental illness in his family. Bardo is diagnosed with manic depression. His depression manifests in self-mutilation and suicide attempts. Twice he is sent to a mental hospital, but his troubles go unchecked. Arizona, 1986. Bardo first discovers actress Rebecca Schaefer on a TV commercial.
Who stalked actress Rebecca Schaefer and shot her to death.
In his diary, he writes that they share a unique bond. To be close to her, he reads everything about her, tapes all of her shows, writes her zealously. When she sends him a generic glamour headshot, he feels encouraged. Bardo goes from Tucson to Los Angeles 4 times to try and see her at her work. Each time, security guards turn him away. He returns home frustrated, his anger bruised.
Bardo's imaginary world was so active that he truly believed he had to be with Schaefer. In his mind, Schaefer was no stranger. Rather, their lives were intertwined. He could never be without her, and the only way to have her was to kill her.
The breaking point comes when he sees Schaefer in an erotic movie scene. It unleashes rage in him. In his mind, she has lost her purity, betrayed him. So he punishes her for it. July 1989. Bardo obtains Schaefer's home address and shoots her dead. He is apprehended and found guilty. His case leads to the first anti-stalking law passed in California. Dr. Stone places Bardo on the scale of evil.
Unlike Farley, Bardo is psychotic and suffers from manic depression. These factors also obscured his sense of reality and his awareness of his actions. But his intent was less malicious than Farley's, and he killed only one victim, whereas Farley murdered 7. For these reasons, I rank Bardo low on the scale at level 6.
Dr. Stone reviews an interview with Bardo and a psychiatrist shortly after his arrest.
Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. I'm just having all the camera here. Okay.
In 1983, you wrote that you were God and Paige prayed.
Did I?
Yeah. It was an upset letter. Your letters go between being calm and thinking about your problems and listing them to being very upset. And one of the upset ones you referred to yourself as God.
I don't recall that. Yeah, because I don't remember doing this. I mean, this is, I can't even believe this is pretty strong now.
Certainly is. What's it say?
It says that sometimes the vegetative chemical and possibly turned and killing it. Because I remember when I looked at it, I think I sort of remember sort of like it being like being a blessed little bastard, you know? Trying to get attention, but no. I didn't think I would actually go out and go to the gun store. But, you know, that's fine, you know. It's just not here, just where I was staying, where I was, you know, because I understood why I looked there, and it's just something, documentary game like this.
13, you were threatening to kill other people,
Yeah.
kill yourself.
Yeah, what I didn't even know. I think that's another thing, you know. I couldn't believe this. I could kill people in Los Angeles. I can't believe that.
Read it out loud.
Huh?
Read it out loud.
This whole pair?
Yeah.
One time I take minutes, one kill. I don't kill a strong gun at the school. I don't care what my parents say. I can't believe how strong this was when I was young. I didn't even know I said that. I didn't even know I said I'm happy when I was young.
Let me read it out loud.
Tell me that.
I think it's about time for me to do something like run away, kill people, kill myself, destroy society, kill and destroy. I'm gonna be the next Hitler. Hail me, damn you. I rule. I'm God. I will make my own. Can't read what it says. Kill, vengeance, violence, destruction.
All big violence society.
That's what it is.
I didn't even know I was that unhappy when I was younger.
Well, reading these, you were extremely unhappy from there.
As Dr. Stone continues to watch, Bardo confesses his reasons for killing Schaefer.
Tell me what the mission was.
Mission? To see Rebecca Schaefer. Killers, you know.
Did she shatter your illusion?
Everything happened so fast. I just felt everything. I just copied and shared. Now that I look at it, I can say that now. Back then it's just me being nervous, uncomfortable with her. And then, she said something, I wasn't really paying attention because I was too nervous, and I've seen the worst, and I didn't want to shot her. I barely even shot her, because I've seen the worst. And that's what happened. I just see the worst about it, because I didn't know, I didn't even give her a chance, I was too much thinking for myself.
Well, back then, did you think you had a relationship with her, or
I didn't think like she was my wife. I didn't consider she was my sister or mother. No, that kind of stuff. I didn't think she was a relative, no. I didn't think I had a relationship with her in my past. I didn't have any of that. I just saw her as a girl that seemed accessible, and I still think about it. And I can tell you the obsession doesn't matter because because the thing that I understand is the emotional connection to the person, not the person's life. I think that's the illusion of dreaming that that person dies, your emotions will change, but it doesn't change. Your emotions are the same.
Nearly 20 years later, Dr. Stone contacts Bardo while he's serving a life sentence in California. Dr. Stone listens to their recorded phone conversations.
You mentioned there were certain things about her or underlined the attraction.
She's stunning. She's very stunning. She had lovely auburn curly hair, and she's very fresh, clean, pretty. And she was like a mixture of woman and child.
Tell me about that girlish innocence. That seemed to mean a lot to you, I guess, in the beginning.
Yeah, it did. It's just with Rebecca, I sort of sense of identifying with certain aspects in her life. You know, she just had the look that just attracted me to her.
His memories of her are lucid. He recalls every detail about her. Even to this day, he still fantasizes about Schaefer.
Stalkers are sly killers. They are stealthy, secretly trailing their victims before they strike. At the root of their quest, obsession. One of the most obsessive stalkers is Mark David Chapman.
I turned and aimed at his back and pulled the trigger 5 times in succession.
December 8th, 1980. John Lennon is shot dead in front of his New York apartment. Fans worldwide mourn, are outraged, and wonder why anyone would kill the former Beatles star.
We have arrested Mark David Chapman for the homicide of John Lennon.
Chapman is a self-proclaimed Beatles fan. Lennon was his childhood hero. So why does he turn on this rock star? To answer this question, Dr. Stone digs into Chapman's past.
As I studied Chapman's case, I discover a history plagued by internal conflict, obsessions, and addictions.
Since age 8, Chapman has worshipped the Beatles. He listens to their albums endlessly, even fantasizes about becoming a 5th band member. He loves the idea of fame. It is a way to escape troubles at home. His parents fight incessantly, violently. Chapman withdraws from them through music and an imaginary world. In it, he is the king of a village of little people. They speak to him.
The hallucinatory voices strongly suggest symptoms of schizophrenia. The voices confuse him, blur the line between reality and fantasy.
Chapman tries to quiet the voices. He immerses himself in religion. Still, the voices persist. He later turns to drugs and alcohol and withdraws further into the church.
Chapman shows signs of an addictive personality. Addicts are obsessive. They latch on to things that give them purpose and pleasure. For Chapman, religion and music became his fixations, and he would do anything to protect them both.
"1966. The Beatles are at the height of fame. But John Lennon angers some fans when he states the band is more popular than Jesus. One of those outraged is Chapman. He takes Lennon's words personally.
This was certainly a defining moment in Chapman's life. He was fanatical about the Beatles. He was fanatical about the church. Now, those two things were at odds, and the conflict ate him up inside. Unable to cope, his addictive ways turned to a new fixation: to destroy Lennon. Somehow, that would reconcile this internal conflict.
His decades-long obsession ends on December 8, 1980. Chapman wakes in his New York hotel, displays personal items on the dresser, and scrawls the word Lenin in the Bible. At 11 a.m., Chapman leaves the hotel and waits for Lennon in front of his apartment. Still the ultimate fan, he asks the former Beatle to autograph an album. The singer agrees and leaves. 12 hours later, Lennon returns home and Chapman fires 5 times. Why couldn't Chapman let go of this 14-year grudge? What pushed him to kill? Seeking to answer these questions, Dr. Stone listens to audio tapes made after Chapman's arrest.
I killed John Lennon because I couldn't handle being a nobody anymore. I had to change. I had to live. I had to be reborn.
As I listened to his tapes, it's clear Chapman was driven by a need for fame.
The only viable solution I saw was to be born again as the murderer of John Lennon, and that's what I became.
Like most stalkers, Chapman was obsessive, fixated on an idea. His quest to kill Lennon was driven by a desire for attention, a need to inflate his ego.
Reviewing Chapman's case, Dr. Stone places him on the scale of evil.
Chapman was more in touch with reality than Bardo, which places him higher on the scale. But Chapman killed only one person, unlike Farley. That is why I place him at level 7. Killers in this category are extremely narcissistic, scheming, and driven by resentment.
But what made Chapman prone to violence? Was his addictive personality a factor? Scientists have found that stalkers behave like addicts. They obsess over their desires. The cravings never cease. They live for the next fix. To explore the motivations behind stalking, scientists draw from research on addictions, like gambling.
When we want to understand the basic neurological mechanisms of stalking, we can look to other behavioral addictions, like pathological gambling. We know that people who are stalkers have a lot of impulsive and aggressive features. There are different brain systems or mechanisms involved.
Dr. Eric Hollander, chair of psychiatry at Mount Sinai School of Medicine, studies various forms of addiction. In one study, Hollander looks at how people addicted to gambling react neurologically during 2 rounds of blackjack. Each time, subjects are first injected with a radioisotope that binds to blood sugar. Then they play a blackjack video game. On the first day, they play for points. Brain activity is captured on the PET scan images via the isotope. The images show minimal neurological responses. On another day, they play for real money. This time, brain activity spikes in areas responsible for emotions and pleasure.
Pathological gamblers who are playing for monetary reward get a lot more emotionally engaged. They get very aroused. They activate regions of the cortex involved in attention and vigilance.
Addicts have a heightened desire for rewards. For gamblers, that reward is money. Hollander's study offers insights into why addicts, and perhaps stalkers, can't stop themselves. He believes that the brain's prefrontal cortex, which governs reason and regulates impulsivity, is less active in addicts.
And this is a failure of the frontal brake mechanism saying, hold off, wait, something bad can happen in the future.
Over time, the addictive brain becomes numb and needs stronger stimuli to reach the necessary high.
Sometimes people will up the ante. They'll engage in more and more dangerous behavior in order to get the same level of stimulation.
But what makes stalkers more dangerous than most addicts is that their addiction can harm not only themselves, but also innocent victims. And for killer stalker Mark David Chapman, his addiction took the life of a music legend. Stalking cases are common. Over 1 million Americans are stalked each year. Stalkers can be jealous lovers, infatuated acquaintances, even secret admirers. Within each stalker is a fantasy that turns obsessive. The most common stalkers are ex-lovers. Jealousy fuels their obsessions. 1993. William Brunner refuses to let go of his ex-wife. He stalks her for 5 months after she leaves him. The pursuit ends when he shoots her dead in broad daylight. He is now serving a 25-year sentence in Florida. Brunner still talks about her in the present tense. Hector Rivas can't win back his girlfriend. The two dated only briefly, but Rivas stalks her for months after their breakup. In 1987, he finally strangles her to death in her New York home with the belt of her bathroom robe. And in 1999, Augustine Garcia harasses his ex-girlfriend because she's about to marry another man. On her wedding day, Garcia opens fire and kills the bride. He is sentenced to life in prison.
The obsessional ex-lover is the most ubiquitous kind of stalker, and often the most tragic. Heartbreak is painful and can ignite crimes of passion. The need to possess and conquer their former lovers overwhelms them. This is their only way to regain control. And the more the victims resist them, the more likely violence will ensue.
But jealous lovers are not the most dangerous stalkers. The most extreme are those whose stalking is fueled by mental illness. Michigan, 1996. Gerald Atkins is crazy about Deborah Myers. To consummate their love, he buys her an engagement ring. They will marry and live together, he dreams. He will protect her, take care of her. But Myers is unaware of Atkins' plans. In fact, she doesn't even know his last name. The two meet at a bar. She writes him off. Atkins doesn't give up and believes Myers is resisting because enemies are interfering. He sets out to massacre them. Killing one and injuring three. As he examines Atkins' case, Dr. Stone uncovers perplexing details. This is not a crime of passion. Rather, Atkins' motivations are much more twisted, insidious.
Atkins is not merely an obsessive stalker. He is deranged, egocentric, and very paranoid.
Dr. Stone observes these behaviors while watching Atkins' police confession.
I met a woman that I fell in love with, and
Was it reciprocal?
yes, it was. And the problem was, she was not able to respond. There was fear on her part. She wasn't afraid of me. She was afraid of something else.
His disjointed thoughts and phobia indicate mental illness. But as Atkins continues to talk about how his conspiracy theories relate to Myers, the pieces fall into place.
Did you ever figure it out?
Yes, I did. She was afraid of the rank and file and the boards and the political action committees.
Was any of this meant to be a statement of your feelings for her, your love for her?
Yes, it was.
In these tapes, Gerald Atkins clearly believes in his actions. He feels justified because he thought he was protecting Deborah Myers. In reality, she barely knew him. His unwavering certainty that they mutually love one another points to a delusional disorder.
A psychiatric evaluation later reveals that Atkins suffers from erotomania, a false belief that one is loved by a stranger.
Erotomania is a serious delusional disorder. Erotomanic stalkers never questioned the victim's love for them, however false it may be. Instead, they conjure up conspiracies about people being out to get them. So they sometimes pin their delusions on the people around them. This can lead to extreme violence.
To understand the roots of erotomania, Dr. Stone explores Atkins' background. He discovers a history of violence. As a teen, he does time for breaking into and vandalizing schools. At age 18, he is arrested for randomly shooting into the street. Perhaps he is lashing out against his abusive parents.
Childhood abuse undoubtedly leaves emotional scars. It can affect a child's sense of self, ego. Sometimes that results in active fantasies that elevate the individual's place in the world.
But what triggers erotomania?
We do not know the precise cause of erotomania. What is known is that erotomaniacs believe a so-called crazy act or an act directed at a third party can somehow protect their object of desire and restore the fantasy of being loved.
As Stone continues to review Atkins' case, he learns how Atkins becomes obsessed with Myers. He spots her at a bar and keeps going back to it to court her. She flatly refuses his advances. But Atkins mistakes her rejections as a plea for help. He believes Myers' co-workers at an auto plant are controlling her and keeping them apart. November 14th, 1996. Atkins storms into the auto factory and fires 300 rounds of bullets. 3 employees are wounded. Myers' boss is killed. Atkins tries to escape, but is caught, and is eventually convicted and sentenced to life.
On there's 26 counts. Count 1 with intent to kill premeditated.
Considering Atkins' crimes, Dr. Stone places him on the scale of evil.
Even though he killed only 1 person, Atkins has a long history of violence and was much more psychopathic than Chapman, Barter, or Farley. While he suffered from a rare delusional disorder, Atkins showed no remorse for his crimes, and he even boasts about it afterwards to police. For these reasons, I put him at level 16. He was not merely an extreme stalker. He showed sustained malicious inclinations, and hence belongs at the higher end of the scale of evil.
Stalkers permeate our society. They are everywhere. But some people, like Farley, Bardo, Chapman, and Atkins, can't let go, and will do anything to have their object of desire.
Mania, fury, and addictions obscured these stalkers' sense of reality and reason. Although these killers are locked up, their terror still lingers, grips us all. We never know who may be lurking, prowling the streets for their next victim.
The elements of fantasy and desire that lead people toward obsessions and stalking are present in all of us. Dr. Michael Stone continues to study the madness and motivations of stalkers to better understand who among us is most evil.